Do you actively avoid speaking to a group, whether it's on stage, in a meeting, or recording a live video? Well, you're not alone. And you need Lauren Sergy. In this episode, she explains why our palms sweat, how to decrease that panic in 10 seconds, and how to practice public speaking in secret. And mostly, how to avoid the most common public speaking faux pas. The next time the spotlight's on you, you can step up with a smile. Let's start with a great introduction because you so deserve that, my friend. Aww. You are such a rock star. So you are the founder of Upfront Communications, which, by the way, I love the name game. Like, I love really cool name things. Like, you know, when you're very clever around coming up with stuff, and Upfront Communication is just so perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because it can be taken in so many ways, like being upfront with people or being upfront in front of people, which is probably where you came up with this. So I just love it. It's so great. But that's not the only thing. You are also an author of a really beautiful, thick book called the Handy Communication Answer Book. So if we don't answer any of your questions today, order this book on Amazon, because it is the Bible. Like, literally, you cover just about every topic around communication that you can possibly cover in this book.
Yeah. First book, and it's like, let's write a 400-page reference book, because why not?
Why not?
That's my monster. I don't call it my baby. That book, that's my monster.
Well, you have two babies.
I have two
right?
babies. Yeah.
Two babies at home. You're a mom. You are also a speaker, a public speaker, and you are a communications consultant. From my introduction to you, that's how I found you. I had attended one of your presentations about public speaking, and I just absolutely loved how you went. Your presence in front of the room, your approach to it, it was very, you took all of the anxiety out of it for me. And then I just knew the next step is to, contact you and get in touch with you and start working with you. And that we did. It's been a long time ago now, but your lessons and your inspirations are with me on a day-to-day basis, especially when I do videos, when I do have speaking engagements. I think of you every time. And what would Lauren say? What would Lauren do right now? And then, of course, I have this Bible, this monster, as you call it, to use as my reference when I can't reach you right away. So you are a really great communication expert. But I also feel that public speaking isn't just about standing in front of a crowd. It's you said it earlier, it's even in a meeting, one-on-one meeting, it's a form of public speaking. Yeah. And I'd like to actually wrap around the word visibility. So in the program in the LEAP, we have a whole section dedicated to visibility and overcoming some of these fears and anxieties around visibility. And I invited you to speak with me today to all of our freedom seekers, specifically about where does this fear and anxiety come from, and how can we, I know it's probably several sessions with you to overcome some of this, but maybe do you have a tip or two for us that we could like tame that beast already and like just bring it down a notch?
Yes. It's funny because you're already doing the breathing. So the fear and the anxiety and everything behind being seen, this is a deep, deep, evolutionarily important response that we have to being up and exposed in front of people. Humans are social creatures. We live in groups. Typically, when someone is singled out of a group, that's a bad thing because now they're vulnerable. Now they're alone. And this even goes for very senior leaders, people who lead a group of people. They are actually the most precariously positioned person in the whole group, because they are relying on the goodwill of the group for them to stay at that status. So for many people, when they get up and when they're being seen, we feel intensely vulnerable. We know that if the mob turns on us, we're in big trouble. And this is the amygdala, what Seth Godin calls the lizard brain. This is not your smart part, which of the brain is up here. This is your brain stem saying, people are looking at me and I'm all alone and this is scary and bad. And we are facing, even though we know that we're not in physical danger when we speak in front of other people or when we're sitting around a table and voicing our opinions in a meeting, we know we're not in physical danger. But the sort of dangers that we're facing are things like rejection. We're in social danger. So we might be rejected. Our status might get lowered. People might think that we don't sound smart. It's usually themes around rejection that's making that lizard brain fire off. And our body doesn't know the difference between fear of rejection, so a social danger, and a physical danger. It reacts in the same way. So we freak out. We feel shaky. We feel nervous. We pull back our voices so they aren't as loud, so that we're not seen as much. We shrink down in our chairs like that. Yeah, we shrink right down and hide our hands under the table. We actually physically pull back because it's this biological caveman response that we've got. So part of getting over not the nervousness, nerves are fine. I get nervous when I go up on stage. It's a good thing. It makes me sharper. But to get rid of the anxiety that cripples you, that causes you to say no, 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 and back away completely, first up, you have to get used to this idea of being seen. And for some people, that's like, oh my God, yeah, they just literally need to see me. So things to remember is that when people are looking at you, they're actually looking at you. They are probably not sitting there thinking, oh, she could lose a few pounds, or her hair is a complete mess, or what the heck is she wearing, and her jewelry is weird, and her face is weird. They're not thinking that. They're just seeing you. That's it. That's all they're doing. They're looking at you because they need to in order to process the information that you have. So for many, just getting used to being seen is part of it. And a great way of getting used to being seen, like if you are the type where stepping in front of a group and literally people looking at you freaks you out to no end, take a dance class. And I say that, yes, take a dance class, because in dance, you are meant to be seen. Yes. There's that whole expression, dance like no one's watching. Well, no, it's more like get used to the fact that people are watching you and it's okay. And it's a low stakes environment to practice being seen in. Or Zumba, like if that's your flavor, do something that lets people see your body and see your face. Yeah. Another thing you can do is flip on the camera and read something on YouTube or do a quick little Facebook Live and then get off. And just understand that people are looking at you. That's it. That's kind of step number one. Now, when you find yourself in that moment of raw panic, you get up there, you turned on the camera, you're talking, you've stood up in front of the boardroom table or in front of the podium or whatever. In the moment when you are being very anxious, what I want you to do is remember to breathe. It sounds easy, but it's not. Yeah. Because when that lizard brain is firing off, one of the things that it's doing is messing with your physiology. It's getting you to breathe very quickly to prepare you for flight or fight, that famous panic response. And your breathing goes from your diaphragm, which is hard to see. Let me hike up. This will be very indelicate, but it's all good. Your diaphragm.
You're going to present it.
It's right there. It's your solar plexus. That's where your diaphragmatic muscle is. That's the muscle that you breathe from when you're feeling relaxed, when you're calm, when you're in control. When you're panicking, you breathe up in your chest. Very quick, right up there. And that tells your brain to panic more. It creates this feedback loop. Okay, so I'm breathing up here. It's very panicky. There must be things that are wrong. So now I'm going to start freaking out about everything. Yeah. But you can control, and that's when your heart starts to race and your blood pressure goes up and you can feel your palms get sweaty, all of that gross stuff. That's when all of that gets triggered. You can control that a bit by going back to a diaphragmatic breath, by breathing from here instead of here. Yeah. And I like to take lots of resets when I'm speaking. And one way that you can do a diaphragmatic breath without really, really training it, because I've done it with you. You know, it takes a lot of training and a lot of thought to be able to reset your breath. A quick shortcut is to do a counted breath. So when you're speaking and you need a lot of air when you're speaking, you feel yourself starting to freak out a little bit, three counts, you're going to breathe in, and then you speak again. And then you breathe in for 3 counts and you speak again. And giving yourself those beats, that 1, 2, 3, and then talk, that long, slow, measured breath is going to get you into here instead of into here. When you think, I need to breathe now, and you suck it right up top, that's a quick breath. No, the slow breath will bring it back down there. It'll bring it back down to your diaphragm. That's going to help your heart rate drop. That's going to help your blood pressure come down. That's going to help you control the panic. And it's not that you're going to become as cool as a cucumber all of a sudden. No, it's just about going from like red panic zone to maybe orange, where I'm still nervous, but I'm not panicking. You're just looking at bringing down that anxiety a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you're worried that it's going to look weird when you're doing these 3 breaths in, have some water with you.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, because I would imagine that drinking water, it gives you that pause as well. That gives you, and it's not awkward in the moment.
Yes.
You know, it's always funny to me how we think, at least how I think, that I need to constantly fill the space with noise or with something I said. Where, you know, there's so much power in silence and just taking a moment for even people to digest what you just said, rather than just speaking 100 miles a minute, you know, to the audience. And it helps me to just slow down and just take a breath. But it helps also the audience to take me in and to give them an opportunity to see me and to just feel every piece of because communication, as I'm sure you teach as well, isn't just verbal.
No, it's not.
It's physical as well, right?
It's physical, it's mental, it's complicated. And what silence does when you are speaking, when the words are coming out, that's when the communication is being transmitted. The thinking happens in the silence. It happens for the audience where they can think and digest. That happens in silence. And for you as the speaker, that's when it happens too. You have to give people a chance to catch up, and you have to give yourself a chance to kind of evaluate and say, okay, am I going where I want to go? But the other thing silence can do is it can create things like exclamation marks. It can give punch to your words. It can build tension. Oh, I love using silence to build tension. You get the audience all worked up, and then you stop for just a minute, like just a couple breaths. And at that moment, they're all doing this.
They're leaning in.
They're leaning in like, yes, this is awesome. What's coming next? And then you drop something on them, and it's like, oh, it works out. If you listen to comedians, you'll find that actually a lot of their punchlines or a lot of their jokes work because they're silent for a second and they're creating tension and anticipation. Silence also lets the audience participate because what they're doing at that moment when you're being quiet is they're thinking, but they're also filling in blanks. So you can give them a chance to fill in a few blanks on their own. And that makes them active participants in the talk or the presentation.
Yeah, so that speaks to the engagement of how to engage your audience into your presentation or into your talk, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good one.
And I'm going to cut you off for a second too, because before we lose this point, you mentioned that you always want to fill the space with words. That is a fear response in communication. That's nervousness. That's anxiety. And you'll see most people will do this, that the more anxious they get, the more they speak.
The more they talk,
It's easy for me to say silence is a wonderful tool, but it's one of those things where when you first start using it, it's very uncomfortable. Because when you stop and take those 3 seconds to breathe, or that sip of water, or create that moment of tension, to you, the speaker, it's going to feel like a million years. To the audience, it will feel very brief. It won't, it feels, everything feels disproportionately big and long to the speaker. Yeah. So when you're trying out this silent stuff, just realize that yes, it will feel weird at first, but stick with it.
It was probably a great thing to practice with your, with just your friends and your family. Yep. To get into the habit of incorporating. You might do it naturally already with them, but to be more aware or mindful when you do that, so that you can see what it feels like in your body, so that you can incorporate it when you're actually speaking on stage or on video. Or I find video is probably the toughest of them all, because you have no feedback. Like you have no visual feedback anyways, or auditory. So speaking on a webinar and speaking on camera is actually, for me, a lot harder than speaking in front of a group of people, because I thrive off of their reactions, like you were saying, when they lean in, or when I can see someone's face or head bopping along like they're in total agreement. So that's different on video, but practice doing it in the comforts of your family and your home, or on camera, I think is a great way to go.
It is. And you don't need to formalize the practice either. You don't need to sit your friends down and say, okay, now I'm going to practice all of this stuff on you. What I advocate is what I call guerrilla practice. So you're going to say, I'm going out for drinks with John and Judy.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can tell them this little story in this certain way. I know what I want to say. I know what I want to tell them. It's a funny thing that happened the other day. I'm going to see if I can really play it up.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but don't tell them, because, right, like as soon as you tell people, it's like, now I'm performing. And the anxiety comes back. No. Don't tell people, because that'll give you the space to just play with it. And like you, camera, hardest thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's when I'm recording my video content, and not the interviews, just the straight up video where I'm doing a Q&A in front of the camera or whatever, that is the space where I feel most uncomfortable, where things are the most difficult. And it's exactly what you said, Yvonne. It's because you're not getting feedback from the audience. Yeah. So for people out there who are saying, I can't talk in front of a big group of people because I can't even talk in front of my webcam, they are two completely separate beasts. Yeah. And for many, many, many speakers, the camera is more threatening than the audience. Like, I took years of film acting training. I learned how to act in front of a camera, and it's still like, ugh. Yeah. It's this black hole that you're staring at. Ugh.
Just to give a little tip that has helped me a lot with the camera stuff is to have, this is a tip I learned from Chalene Johnson, and that is to mentally think of one person, even when you public speak to a group of people, but in front of a camera or in front of a public group, just picture one person, and that person should be that ideal person to receive the message that you're about to deliver, and just really embody that person being in front of you. If that person is really in your life a lot, you can even ask them to come over while you're filming a particular piece, because just having them in the room and maybe behind the camera and paying attention to all the technical aspects of the camera work that needs to go into this stuff as well helps a lot, right? So it has made a huge difference for me to just focus on one person rather than a whole group of people that I'm speaking to.
Yeah. It's a great bit of advice.
Yeah. So I loved how you tapped onto engaging your audience with silence. Are there any other ways that we can engage our audiences that you can share with us?
Yeah. I love asking my audience questions. I try getting my audience speaking to me and interacting with me as much as possible. And you can do this, of course, this is easy to do with small audiences. You can do this with rooms with like 500 people as well. Yeah. Ask them a question, tell people to stick up their hands if they agree, or pose a question that you don't necessarily ask for an answer to. And when you see people start to nod along, be like, yeah, you down there, you buddy, you know what I'm talking about. That's engagement. That's involving them in a conversation. And even though, that there's only one guy or one group of people that you might be pointing to at the time. The rest of the audience is going to be saying, oh, she's speaking to them, so she's also speaking directly to me. I'm part of this. And you get those vibes going back and forth.
Yeah, comedians use that a lot. Yeah. That particular trick, right? Like and that's why no one wants to sit in the front row.
Always be careful about sitting in the front row because that's what they're doing. They're looking for engagement. And
that's right.
There's nothing worse than what I call a dead audience. And a dead audience, it's the ones that just nothing. Oh, I would rather an angry audience than a dead audience. Yes, because at least I've got something to respond to. So yeah, asking the audience these and simple questions. Has anyone here ever felt this way? Like, have you ever gotten up to the microphone and your brain just went blank? I know that 90% of the people are going to say yes, so they all start nodding along, and I'm going to be like, me too! This happens to everyone. That's a simple form of engagement. You can ask for more complex forms of engagement. Invite someone, especially with a small audience, invite someone to share a story where they experience something similar. Have them stand up and talk to everyone. After the first one or two people, the rest of the audience relaxes and they'll want to engage more too.
Very true.
From the speakers.
Probably really helpful for a workshop, right? Because now you're going to be spending a few hours with them, not just a 45-minute talk. So to have them with you and feeling comfortable to be engaged, that would be a really good one to use for that.
Yeah. If you're giving a workshop that's a few hours long, plan on spending at least half of it in activities with the audience. So you give them a specific task to do. I want you to take 2 minutes now and just write down what you think of this in a scenario that you're actually dealing with in your life and work on it. Yeah. And then you ask someone to share. And then maybe you ask someone to actively workshop their problem with you. So you pull up a member of the audience and say, okay, for the next 5 minutes, let's go through this presentation that you're really struggling with, and let's figure out what's going on. So we can ensure that you're giving that your topic is on point. And I'll workshop one person's thing for 5 minutes or more sometimes with the whole group. Those kinds of interactions, if you're giving something that is several hours long, that is fantastic. It gives you a bit of a break in terms of performing all the time, but it gets everyone doing real work.
Yeah, they implement right away. Yeah.
Implement right away.
Yeah, and often, well, not often, implementation as quickly as possible will form that relationship where they walk away feeling like they've gotten something out of what you wanted to teach them. I prefer workshops over 45-minute talks any day, because it gives me that opportunity to see them actually integrate what they're learning at the same time, whereas a talk oftentimes lands and they're like on to the next, like, those presentations we used to do where you're like one of 5 speakers. Yeah. And it's like, I just always hope I'm the last one, because by the time they get to me, if I'm the last one, at least they're retaining what I said last, versus, if I was the first one, well, by the time they're done that day, they probably don't remember anything from what happened. Yeah. Awesome. Lauren, body talk. Let's talk body talk for a second, because I think that's a big one as well. That is very easy to just tweak a little bit and makes such a big difference in terms of your confidence that you're projecting to people in front of a group or even on camera, right? Yeah. So what do you have for us on body talk?
It's all in how you stand. It's all about how you stand. Well, the foundation is all about how you stand. First thing, if there is a podium, unless you are emceeing, like master of ceremonies, or are giving a political stump speech, I want you to get out from behind that damn podium.
Get rid of that podium. I know.
Rid of it. You can have it there. Now I have no problem with people bringing up notes, by the way. No scripts. A script will hold you back. But if you want to have notes, it is useful to have a podium or a lectern there so you can put them somewhere. Yeah. But don't stand behind it, because then people don't see your body. You're now at this point removing a critical piece of emotional communication from your audience. So You are not. So right now, let's picture it. You are not standing behind the podium. Also, you will grab the podium if it's in front of you. Everyone does it.
Absolutely. And we all do it. We stand there holding the podium, both
white
hands.
knuckling that flippin' thing. If there's a podium in front of me, it's a constant struggle for me not to do this. And I do this professionally. Like no.
Hey, you throw it in front of me, I'm going to use it.
Oh, yeah. So assuming you are not standing behind the podium, the first thing that I want you to do is get your feet balanced evenly on the floor. Yes, you are allowed to move and walk and be dynamic. Absolutely. We're creatures that move, but you kind of want to return to this good home base of your weight balanced evenly on your feet. So one thing I see a lot of people do is what I call storking. And that's where these are my feet. That's where they kind of they'll start to lean to one side and then the other foot will slowly come up, and occasionally you get lift off where the foot actually comes completely off the ground.
I have totally done that. I have totally done that.
I catch everyone doing it at some point, like you're storking. And the reason why I don't like storking is because you're just making everything harder for your body. But you'll often see storking when people have something to lean against. That's another reason to get rid of the podium or to move away from the table. It makes you look and feel less strong. Yeah, you're going to shift your weight from side to side. That's fine. Take a load off. But just think whenever you're starting to feel like, oh, I don't feel that great, return to a really, really strong, evenly balanced weight, evenly distributed on your feet. From there, the energy comes up through your body. You want to engage your abdominal muscles. And yes, everyone has abdominal muscles. If you can sit upright, you have abs. Just engage them lightly. Not like you're doing a crunch. That's too hard. But like you're thinking about doing a crunch. Just a nice little in through your abs. And then we go to where I really put a lot of the focus is the proud chest.
Yes.
Our chests tell the audience how we're feeling. If we are collapsed in that way through the chest, you see the shoulders, they get rounded forward. You collapse in and down through the chest. This says that I'm not confident. This says that I'm not engaged. This is like your body physically making yourself smaller.
Yes.
And so then people usually think, okay, well, I don't want to be small, so I'm going to overcorrect. And they shoulders down and back as hard as possible, but that's just gross and tense. No, no, no. The proud chest is where that wonderful energy coming up through the floor and up through your lightly engaged abs comes right up through your chest, and it just floats up a little bit. It's not out. You're not looking for a fight. It's just up and proud. This is how dancers stand. So when people say, oh, that person, they stand so beautifully like a dancer, they're holding their chest just up a little bit. Yeah. And the abdominal engagement is going to help you do that. Yeah. Don't strain. Don't strain through your chest. It's just, how do I stand when I feel awesome? Someone's given me a compliment, or I did something that I feel great about, or I'm just happy. Your chest will be up a little bit. And once this chest is up, all that you have to do is let your shoulders go. They will fall down and back and squared on their own if you're holding your chest nice and proud. Yeah. So it's the difference between this. I know it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but it's the difference between this.
Well, because we're sitting down as well, right? There is a difference when you're standing versus sitting. But even when you're sitting,
not much.
You can project it. Exactly. Yep. You can still sit up and engage your core more than you are like slouching, you know?
Yeah. And it's just, once again, it's that chest is slightly lifted. It's proud. It feels good. And even if you're not feeling all that great, when you stand like it, your audience assumes that you are confident and therefore competent. Confidence and competence are very closely associated in people's minds. So they see that, they assume you're feeling that way, and they kind of give you those good vibes, where they look at you and they're like, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about. And you think, wow, they think I know what I'm talking about, so maybe this is okay. And then you start to feel a bit better yourself, right? You get this great feedback going on. And it's that posture, it's that proud, relax through your shoulders. You don't need to put any, if your chest is up and proud, then you don't need to put any effort into making your shoulders square off or anything else. It becomes effortless through here. And that's what people are looking at.
And it makes it easier to breathe as well. you're
Yeah.
not constricting your diaphragm. You're not constricting any of these muscles. So
Yeah.
I totally agree. I remember, and I don't know if it was you who told me this, or if I had read this somewhere, but before you step out onto camera or onto a presentation, I would go to the bathroom and I would do jumping jacks and sun salutations.
Yeah.
Because I think it was a TED talk where I learned that the body posture of like power is like, as make yourself as big as possible.
Yeah.
And that just, it gives you confidence. It was a TED talk on confidence, how to
Amy
instantly
Cuddy.
get.
Yeah, Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, one of the most famous TED Talks out there, and it's a good one. It's a really solid one. Like, there is some debate over how reliable the research that went into it was, but I see that as basically splitting hairs. Like, it feels good.
Yeah,
and it does make you, it gives you that surge. What it also does, taking these big postures, is it gets some of the nervous energy out and lets your muscles stretch and exercise and relax a little bit. So like, I shadow box. If I'm really keyed up, or I want to get myself pumped before giving a talk in front of a big audience, I am backstage, because I have a martial arts background as well. I will shadow box. I'll do that. I dance.
Yeah.
And that's my way of relaxing my body, of feeling big, of feeling powerful, of getting that physical energy directed somewhere good. And then when I'm ready to go up, it's there. The posture's there.
Yeah.
It's a very physical thing. So
many beautiful tips, Lauren. This is so powerful. You know what? We might have to do this in 2 segments, because there's so much we can talk about when it comes to body language and how we communicate, nonverbal communication.
Yep.
So do you have like something that comes to mind right away, like a number one mistake people make when they go up in front of a camera or on stage that just is totally avoidable?
Yes. And this has nothing to do with body language. This is all about knowing what you want to talk about. You have got to know what your core message is before going up. And that core message is 1 sentence long. And it's declarative. It is a statement. It's I will often say that it's basically a thesis. That scares some people off. The way that I define it is your most important message. If your audience remembers nothing else from what you said, they will remember this one thing. Yeah. You have got to have that identified, because your entire talk, your whole meeting, your impromptu speech, everything is going to hang off of that one message that you have clearly defined. And so here's an example of what does not work and what does. Okay. If you were going to give a talk on living your best life, easy peasy example, haha. You can't say that my core message is how to lead your best life. No, that's not a statement. It tells me nothing. It takes no position. It's not something that you're going to be backing up in front of your audience, and it's not something they can take home and share with someone else. If you said, my core statement, my most important message is you will live your best life with lots of sleep, wine, and cats.
Okay.
It's ridiculous, but that is a statement.
But it's a statement. Yeah.
It's a statement. It's something they can take home and say, yeah, that lady, she said sleep, wine, and cats. That's the secret to the best life. It's a statement, and it's a statement that you're going to be backing up and that you're going to hang the rest of your presentation from.
Yeah. So is it that you would, I mean, I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna just play with you for a second here. That is probably where we should start when you write your presentation in the first place, right? Like, what is it that I actually want my message to be? What is it that I want the key piece to be? And then you build everything from there. Or would you build a presentation and then out of the presentation, identify what your biggest takeaway is?
You know, there's no one way to do it. Making presentations, figuring out your messages, this is messy creative work. So there's sometimes I know what the message is. And it could be something like if someone, I could easily take this message and create a full presentation off of it. That the act of public speaking is as much a mental game as it is a content and a technique game. The headspace is just as important. That's something that I could take and then build a fully formed presentation off of. But very often when I'm building my presentations, what I actually know are bits and pieces that the audience really needs to understand. And I take those and then reverse engineer that one sentence.
That makes sense to me, yeah.
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 Yeah, very often it's, okay, I really need to address these two concepts. How can I link them in a sentence, in one statement that makes sense to the audience, that helps them remember what the presentation was about, and that gets them thinking? And then I reverse engineer it.
Yeah, that's the brainstorm concept or mind mapping concept, where you just throw a bunch of things that you want to talk about, or you feel the audience you want to share with the audience. And then you start building your message from there, and you narrow it down, and you start seeing connections as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. And it actually just gave me permission to do that more often, whereas I tend to approach it from, I have to know what my message is first, and then I build everything around it. So I thank you for that tip. That's really
welcome.
Cool one.
Sometimes it's that you know the things you want to hit on, and now how do I connect them for the audience? That's part of a really good communicator's job, is to make those connections for the audience. And that's what that most important message is. It's the connections. Yeah. And sometimes what you figure out when you're reverse engineering that message is, you know what? I can't logically connect these things. They're actually two separate ideas. So I'm going to push this one aside for now and focus on this. So yeah, but you need to have that core statement, because otherwise you're going to go off on tangents. You're going to go off all over the place.
And you're going to have someone take you off course.
Yes.
Because there's always this one person in the audience, inevitably, that will raise their hand, say something really distracting or destructive.
I'm a dog person. No, that's not what we're talking about, damn it.
We're talking about cats here.
Talking about cats.
Get her.
But yeah, it acts as your North Star too. So if someone in the audience gets you off on a tangent, or you feel yourself going off on a tangent, you return to that core message. You repeat the core message again out loud, and that helps you get back on track. Yeah. So that's my big thing.
Yeah, thank you. That is such a big one. So the number one mistake you see people make is that they don't know what their core message is, or their one thing that they want the people to take, the audience to take away. That's a really great one. So whether you get to that first or after you develop the points you want to make, that the order doesn't matter, but have the one thing that you want to talk about, that you want your message to be heard.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So we need to wrap this up, because this is going to turn it's going to be a 2-part series, Lauren. I know it. There's just so much, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you are just such a beautiful wealth of information when it comes to communication, and just such a beautiful light, period, in what you shared about your business too. It's so valuable to hear for myself, but I know also for the women that are listening to this, that you're so passionate about this, but that doesn't mean that you're going to build a business overnight with this. It's going to take time, and it doesn't matter if it takes time, because you enjoy doing it so much that it doesn't really matter how long it takes. You just follow your heart. Exactly. Yeah. And then the tips you gave us today, again, just rock star stuff. So again, I want to say that this book is really amazing. So you can order it on Amazon. It has all the technical stuff, and then some in here for communication, anything around communication. This isn't just public speaking. This is about writing really great emails. This is about putting together presentations like you have, literally. You put your life's work in here. This is just so much.
if you want more, and by you, I mean, of course you, Yvonne, but also all of your listeners and viewers, if you want more tips on public speaking, on communication, I put out regular content. I'm doing a lot of video right now. I've just started launching a full video Q&A series with quick tips, little 3 to 5 minute snackable things that you can watch on YouTube. And the best way to keep on top of that is to sign up. Go to laurensergy.com. That's LaurenSergy.com, and there will be plenty of space on there where you can sign up to receive notifications of all the new content that I'm putting out. So sign up there. You'll get lots of tips. You can keep just working on that communication thing.
It's a big one, and you are definitely the expert in this. So I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Great. Thanks, Lauren.
Okay, take care, Yvonne.
As always, the best conversations happen after the episode on YvonneWinkler.com/The Freedom Seeker Show. So go there, leave a comment, and let me know what resonated most with you and why. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our email list and become a Freedom Seeker Insider. You will get instant access to an audio I created called The 5 Steps to a Freedom Life, as well as some special content, exclusive giveaways, and some personal updates from me that I don't share anywhere else except maybe texting my BF.